Hello everyone, Mr. Yard here. Today I'd like to talk to you about probability. So this is a really big word and it's a really big idea. I'm going to give you some different examples today so we can start to think about it and analyze probability in a mathematical way, in math. Okay? So what is probability? Probability is when we're talking about events, so things that will happen, when we're predicting events, right? And how likely things are to happen. So a very typical example of this is the weather, right? When we're talking about a weather forecast, if we're talking about how likely it is it will rain tomorrow, that is probability. So we can say it might be likely to rain tomorrow, it will probably rain tomorrow, or it will be unlikely to rain tomorrow, right? These are things that we hear every day. We're always talking about probability of events. Okay? So important language when we're talking about probability, I've highlighted these 5 words. So we've got equal probability, we've got likely probability, unlikely probability, certain probability, and impossible probability. Okay? So I'll just run through these really quickly, what they mean, and then we'll work through an example where we can see what each of these things might look like. So if we're saying that something has equal probability, it means that it is equally likely to happen. If I flip a coin, and there are 2 sides to the coin, each side has an equal probability, right? I have an equal chance that it will be either heads or tails, right? Likely probability is when something is likely to happen. So if you're looking at the weather forecast and it's saying there's an 85% chance of rain tomorrow, that's saying that there's a likely probability of rain tomorrow. It will probably rain tomorrow, right? And the opposite of that would be unlikely. If something is unlikely to happen, there's a low probability, or it's not likely to happen. If there's an 85% chance of rain, it is unlikely it will be sunny, right? Certain probability is when something absolutely will happen, right? And there are some interesting debates about this, but an example could be the sun will rise tomorrow, right? That is something that we are certain will happen, right? And then the opposite of that would be impossible probability, right? Which might be something like the sun will rise 2 times tomorrow, right? That's impossible. So let's look at what some of these concepts might look like in a card game. Okay, so let's imagine that I have 4 cards. The cards are here. I've got a 10 of spades, a 10 of diamonds, a 9 of diamonds, and a 10 of clubs. And imagine that you're asked to choose some of these cards, okay? And we can talk about how likely, we can talk about the probability of getting certain cards in this game. So let's start with equal probability. So something that has equal probability in this case would be getting a black card or a red card. There are 2 black cards and there are 2 red cards. So you are equally likely, if you choose one of these cards, there's an equal chance you will get either a black card or a red card because they're the same number of each color in these cards. Okay? Let's talk about something that is likely. There's a likely probability. So in this case, there are 1, 2, 3 10s and 1 9. So we could say it is more likely, or it is likely, that if you choose one card, you will probably get a 10, not a 9. That's not to say that you won't get a 9. It's possible you will get a 9, right? But it is more likely that you will get a 10. If you choose a card and you repeat that a bunch of times, you'll see over time you're going to get more 10s pulled than 9s simply because it's more likely, right? Something that is unlikely in this case then would be pulling the 9, right? Because there is only 1 9 and there are 3 10s, it is unlikely that you will pull a 9 out of the 4, okay? Something that is certain in this game, something that will happen, right? A certain probability is that you will either pull a 9 or a 10, right? We know that these 4 cards, they are 9s and 10s. We know that you will certainly pull either a 9 or a 10. Those are your options, right? So that is something that we know will 100% happen, right? And then the opposite of that, something that is impossible, an impossible probability here would be pulling an 8. It is impossible in this case to pull an 8 from these 4 cards because there's no 8 as an option here. There are only 9s and 10s, so the probability of pulling an 8 or a 7, right, is impossible. It is something that cannot happen in this case. Okay? The last thing I wanted to mention is we can actually assign a number, we can assign a numerical value to probability in the form of a fraction. So if we're looking at, for example, the likelihood or the probability of pulling a 9, here in this case, we've said that it's unlikely because there's only one 9. So the probability of pulling a 9 is actually 1 because there's one 9 out of a total of 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can actually write this fraction, and the probability of pulling a 9 is 1 out of 4, right? And that is obviously less likely. It's not likely, okay? And so we could say the same thing for the 10s. The probability of pulling a 10 would be 3 out of 4, right? There are 3 10s in that deck, and there are 4 cards in total, so the probability of pulling a 10 is 3 out of 4. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I just wanted to kind of introduce that idea that you can use fractions to talk about probability, not just likely or unlikely or equal probability. Okay? This is a really big idea, so I really encourage you to watch the video again if you're not sure. You can also check out other videos on YouTube and talk to adults at home, talk to people about probability. It's a big concept, and the more you can talk about it with more people, the better you can start to understand it. Okay? Make sure you have a good understanding of what the different words mean: equal, likely, unlikely, certain, and impossible. And then you can try the quiz. Okay? Have fun. This is a really fun thing in math, probability, and we're going to do some fun experiments with this next time. Okay? Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.